His journey to the dockside started in a North London suburb.
It may not look like one of the great pop landmarks, but for the folk rock fraternity, this house in Muswell Hill, North London, is as important as that Beatles landmark, Abbey Road. It was here in the spring of 1967 that the then teenage Richard Thompson first rehearsed with the band with whom he made his name. The name of the house is Fairport, and the band gave themselves a rather American title, Fairport Convention.
The music they made here was eclectic, putting it mildly, from blues to American rock favourites, and then they pioneered British folk rock. The Fairports were joined by the greatest British traditional fiddle player of his era, Dave Swarbrick. But they still looked like an all-purpose 60s band. Richard Thompson then had a shock of curly hair, and even as a teenager was a quite remarkable guitarist. In 1969, the Fairports' ever-changing lineup had included both Swarbrick and that great singer Sandy Denny. And in the autumn of that year, they released Liege and Leaf, an album that matched new songs that somehow sounded traditional, with bleak traditional songs treated with rock instrumental work. It was the first British folk rock album and is now seen as a classic.
I think we knew it was an important record, and we probably thought it was important to about 15 people, including ourselves. You know, what we're aware is that it was the first attempt to really, you know, update British traditional music and bring it into the sort of, you know, the rock/pop mainstream.
I'd never heard anything so colourful done to folk music before. I mean, the shades of evil, you know, that it was possible to do with the electric. It was enormous.
At the awards, the now legendary 1969 Fairport lineup were reunited. There was Simon Nicol, who was brought up in the Fairport house and is still a member of Fairport Convention. Bass player Ashley Hutchings, known as the Governor.
The one that's on Liege and Leaf.
Dave Swarbrick, thankfully recovered after years of serious illness and still owning his 1969 fiddle.
Yeah, I've not seen that.
Time no see.
And of course, Richard Thompson.
Get out of here.
Liege and Leaf was very much a group effort, but the album producer argues that Thompson played a key role.
Fantastic.
Good to see you.
Bloody good, mate. Bloody good.
I think it all came back to Richard and how he took those ideas that were flying around and incorporated them into what he played, and people feeding off that as the center of what was happening on Liege and Leaf.
To perform Matty Groves, would you please welcome Fairport Convention.
It's a holiday on the first one of the year.
Liege and Leaf won the award for the most influential folk album of all time.
And when the reading it was done, she cast her eyes about, and there she spied little Matty Groves walking in the crowd.
Amazingly, no one bothered to film this most famous of all the Fairport lineups back in 1969.
He struck his wife right through the heart, and he pinned her against the wall.
But this is what they look and sound like now, with Chris Wilde taking the part of the late Sandy Denny.
From a very my lady at the top, she was of noble care.
After recording a historic album at the age of 20, Richard Thompson moved on. In January 1971, he quit the Fairports to start his solo career, in which he was joined until 1982 by his then wife Linda. For the last 2 decades, he's been based in the States, where he has an even larger following than Britain, and his songs have been covered by country artists. But he sounds more British than ever.
The chapel of partial remembrance, the ushers went into a seizure.
There aren't many singer-songwriters in Los Angeles writing about divorce and a novelty dancer from Penge.
And they honeymooned down in Ibiza, where the sun and the night life were hot. As she lay on the sand, he said, isn't it grand? I'll bring all of my wives to this spot, let it blow.
Well, there is a theory that you need some distance to focus on who you are and where you come from. I think to some extent that's true. To put myself in the same sentence as James Joyce or Robert Louis Stevenson, it worked for them. You know, being an exile.
Abroad.
Yeah, but being abroad, you know, kind of pulled everything into very sharp focus.
What I've heard so far...
And for his latest project, yet another change of direction.
Your guitar has to be the lead, very, very, very clear lead, and very much authority in it. And then all the rest will fall in place. We are not...
He was asked by that maverick director, Werner Herzog, to write and play the music for his new film.
Okay, go to work, do your job.
The true story of a man who lived and died among the bears in the Alaskan wilderness, Grizzly Man. That's his new music. And here's a song he wrote 38 years ago. The Folk Awards ended with a who's who of the folk fraternity joining old and current members of Fairport Convention for what's become their regular finale. The thoughtful Meet on the Ledge was written by Richard Thompson while still a teenager. After all these years, he surely deserves a little recognition.
Robin Denslow on Richard Thompson. Tomorrow morning's front pages. The Times leads on, puts a human face on